All right, welcome to What Do I Do Next? Parenting, it's an intro to parenting your 5 to 12-year-olds. We're glad you're here for the next 30 minutes, and we are going to give you 3 tips that you can use tonight, if anybody's still up, and that you can use tomorrow, and they're good right away. Tonight, in our half hour, we're going to go over, this is our workshop overview. We're going to do a quick overview of the pet parenting philosophy. We're going to watch a video of a parent before they've taken PEP. We're going to give you your 3 tips, and then we're going to watch the parent after they've been trained to see what the differences are and go through some pitfalls that most parents fall into. And so at PEP, our philosophy of parenting is reflected in this photo on this slide here. So I ask people a lot, what do you see in this slide? Why did I pick this slide? And a lot of people say, oh, because they're close and they're hugging and they're laughing. And the real reason that we picked this slide is that it's multi-generational. The job of parenting is really to be invited to their house when they're 30 for Thanksgiving feast. It is not for shoes to be on or for them to do exactly what we say. So what that means is that we use tools that are compassionate and loving and relationship building so that we ultimately get to that Thanksgiving dinner. 2 concepts that we use instead of either I'm in charge or the child's in charge are we think about what are the needs of the situation, what needs to get done in that moment, and am I delivering it with mutual respect? So am I using parenting tools that are respectful and not yelling, nagging, cajoling, nor are they permissive, letting kids get away with stuff, being taken advantage? So those are the 2 main concepts. Let's dive right in and watch our first role play. And at PEP, we don't say a good or a bad parent. We say a trained or an untrained parent. The scenario here is about a 7 or 8-year-old and a mom getting out of the house in the morning, something we all know.
Josiah, 5 minutes, we gotta go. I'm running late and it's an important meeting today. Can you please get your things ready and your shoes on? Josiah, you still don't have your things ready. Can you come on and get ready? I'm really late today. We gotta hurry. Come on, let's go. Josiah, you don't have your lunch ready. You don't have anything together. I have to do everything for you. And you're still reading your book. Can't you do that later tonight? An important meeting to do. Oh, I always have to do everything for you every morning, and I'm late. Here, take your bag, put your shoes on, we're late, let's go. That's it, that's enough, come on, we're late, put your shoes on, get your backpack. No, I'm really late for work, and you do this to me every morning. When are you gonna get it together?
All right, does that look familiar? That role play just touches on so many things. So the things I want you to notice from that role play is the parent is parenting from standing above the child, looking down at them. The child is accidentally being trained in the parent reminding, then the parent rescuing, and then the parent reprimanding the child for the parent having to rescue them. The parent is accidentally very discouraging, not consciously at all. This parent wants the child to be independent, wants the child to get ready. And if you notice, the child had accidentally trained the parent to get all his stuff ready while he was relaxing and reading a book. The price he had to pay was listen to her nagging and cajoling and catastrophizing. The other thing that we see in this video is that the parent is using awfulizing language. Words like always and never. You never help out. We're always late. You do this to me every morning. When we say those words, you can bet we're in parenting mischief. So tool number one we're learning from this video is that you're more likely to be heard when you first get the child's attention. And oftentimes we try to get the child's attention by standing in another room, clearing the dishwasher, and yelling at them. But it's not mutually respectful to yell at someone. So first you want to get the child's attention first. You want to speak eye to eye, especially in this age group when we're taller than them. If you have a real task for the child to do or a direction to give, then you want to get down to their eye level and give them that direction rather than trying to do any drive-by parenting where we're yelling from another room. We want to keep requests simple and straightforward. And we go back to the needs of what are the needs of the situation, and then again, am I delivering it with mutual respect? So not worrying about things that are happening around what needs to happen. So not asking the child what's in his backpack, what did he prepare for lunch, but really keeping it, do you have your stuff ready? Is your backpack ready to go? The shoes need to be on. So these three things, you're more likely to be heard if you get the child's attention first with respect, speak eye to eye, get down to their level, and keep your requests simple and straightforward. Think a lot less words, maybe 2 or 3 words in your sentence. The next tip is ask questions and listen. And listening is one of the very, very most underused parenting tools out there. It is a real way that we can show mutual respect when we ask a question and we listen. If we ask a question how they prefer something or what shoes they might want to wear or how they would like the morning to go, and then we sit on our hands and listen to what they say, we might find out some new ways to do things that will work for our family in a better way. We want to give our child ample time to answer. We are in such a rush these days, and we have such instant gratification from our phones or our screens that we don't give children a second to think about what we ask them and then formulate a response. So when you're asking your child a question, you want to make sure that you're in a relaxed time and that you're willing to not have a phone in your hand and just wait for the child to give you an answer. Listening is a way to learn what our kids think and believe. This is the key to what they do. All human beings behave by what they think and they believe. In that role play, that child thinks and believes that my mom can do all these tasks, and so I have extra time to read Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And maybe that child believes that they're not capable of doing the backpack because this scenario has happened over and over again. The person who's practiced packing the backpack is the mom and not the child. So it could be that the child isn't looking to relax at all, but instead doesn't feel capable to do the things that the mom keeps doing for him. Listening also allows for the child to work with their own problem solving. We all have different ways that we do things, different ways we wake up in the morning, different ways we get ourselves motivated when we're procrastinating on something, different ways that we start a task, different ways to make a bed, and our kids are just the same. A lot of times they come up with new and fresh ideas that we never would have even considered, and listening is a way that we can actually get help problem solving in our house. They have so many good ideas. They learn so many good things at school that they can bring home and share with us. So tip number 2 is actually asking a question and then listening to what the child has to say. Tool number 3 is allow for natural consequences. A natural consequence is what happens if we do absolutely nothing. So a natural consequence of not wearing a coat outside when it's cold out might be that you're cold. A natural consequence of not bringing your lunch to school might be that you don't have any lunch to eat. It might mean that you're hungry, but usually what it means is your friends share lunch with you, you get hot lunch, a teacher helps you out. Natural consequence of touching a hot stove is that you might get burned. Natural consequences are really the way most people learn their lessons in life, and it's something we want to allow our kids to experience. It takes the heavy lifting off of us teaching and lets the world teach them how the world works. Experience is really mostly how we learn. If we've let a natural consequence occur, we want to make sure that we don't ruin that perfectly good natural consequence of learning by talking or lecturing. Any "I told you so" after a natural consequence immediately changes that moment of learning into a moment of punishment, where then the child stops focusing on what happens and starts focusing on defending him or herself from our judgment and our new lecture about it. So where in your life could you let a natural consequence occur for your child and see what they learn about it? Natural consequences are not to be used for health and safety issues. For example, brushing teeth, we would not allow a natural consequence to occur. That's something that's too far in the distance that they can't tell. But natural consequence of forgetting your raincoat when it's raining out is that you might be wet. Most kids can endure a lot of things and learn from the natural consequence. And what that does is it minimizes the friction in our house with the nagging and the cajoling and the reminding, and it lets them figure out how they want it to go. From my experience, most kids don't like heavy winter coats. They'd rather wear a hoodie and a vest than they would our big expensive winter coats. So the natural consequence of losing a coat might be that the child wears a couple sweatshirts. It could be that the natural consequence of the child losing a big expensive coat is that we don't buy a big expensive coat this year, or they save their allowance money to buy half of the coat. So natural consequences is a great parenting tool that you can use right after this webinar. All right, so now let's take a minute and watch the parent after they've tried some of these tools, and let's see what you see in it.
Oh, Josiah, man, you've gotten really far in your book. So what do we have to do to get ready this morning?
I'll get my lunch.
Get your lunch? Okay. So what I'm going to do is get to the office and get my bag, and then I'm going to head to the car. Can you lock up the door behind you?
Sure, I love locking up the door.
Okay, great.
Uh-oh, what would you guys do in that moment? So in that train scenario where the lunch is accidentally left behind, which is a really common scenario, the things that we want you to notice is that the parent first equalized the distance. She came in, and if you watch those role plays one after the other, you notice her whole body language changes just by equalizing the difference. And she has an open face where she first invites him. She asks a question, what needs to get done? And you know what she did that's really, really hard for us parents? And when we do it ourselves, it feels like forever. She waited maybe 10 seconds for the child's brain to get into gear and think about what he had to do next. The parent also did another thing that we like to talk about at PEP, was acting as if the child was capable. So the running back and forth and checking and then the taking over is something that this trained parent avoided. She was very much in her own life of what she needed to get done and had faith that the child would be able to master his own backpack packing and take it to the car. She gets herself organized first, which is another awesome parenting tip, is we parent much better when we feel like we're in control of our lives. And she also gives the child appropriate responsibility. Now, I don't know if you guys would be okay with your 8-year-old locking up the house, but starting now to expand the things that you train your children to do, and then they become partners in the running of the house, is a wonderful way to build the child up and build the relationship and to get yourself a little more free time. So she gives the child appropriate responsibilities. She wouldn't spring it on him that day. It's something that she would have trained him to do over time and then gives him the option to do. The last one is really, 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 really hard for a lot of us parents, which is that she was in the car waiting and that lunch box got left right on the kitchen counter. A lot of times parents make the mistake of rescuing, so they would come back home, see the lunchbox, and then they would drive it to school, and then they'd fume about it all day, and then they'd pick up the kid, and the kid would get in the car, and then the parent would yell at them about the lunch pail. Instead, at PEP, we would say, let the lunch pail teach the child the lesson, and you go ahead and can talk about something different. So the mom might pick up the child and not even ask about lunch at all, and just see what unfolds. Kids are way more resourceful than we give them credit for, and it's great for them to experiment at younger ages. All right, this slide is a great slide. At PEP, we try to think of lots of different ways we can solve the same parenting problem. So you'll see it's like a bunch of puzzle pieces all coming together. We use things like encouragement, where we notice when people are making improvement, or we just give a hug, or we appreciate the contribution someone made. We use listening skills, which I talked about in our tip. We take time to train our kids on how to do household chores, how to take care of themselves, how to do social things. We use a concept called special time, which is one-on-one time with the child, and we talk about being both really quite firm with your kids, all the while being friendly. So those are some of the things you can learn in future classes, but I wanted to show you this slide now to show you there's so many different ways to solve our everyday problems, like morning mayhem, what do I wear, kids won't eat, all of those things. Instead of just yelling or bribing or punishing kids, we have a multitude of answers, a multitude of ways that you can interact with your kids and try to solve the problems. All right. Then here's some common pitfalls. All right, questions are coming in. I love it. All right, so common pitfalls is talking down to children. So that would be talking in an above position. That would be talking condescending or talking really meanly to kids on a regular basis. Being in a rush, even though we all are, is a common pitfall that creates more angst and upset and all of that kind of stuff in our lives. So where can we slow down? Where can we declutter so we have time for our kids to practice putting their shoes on or packing their backpack? Going back to that concept that we want to replace reminding, rescuing, and reprimanding with natural consequences. So kids, if you live with kids 5 and over, they all know they need their shoes on. So tomorrow morning, you can experiment with not even saying it. All right, thinking we know what the child thinks or will do if we try something new. This is a common pitfall for parents, and then we stay stuck in the same old thing because we think, oh, our kid would never, ever, ever put their shoes on unless I reminded them 100 times. So that's a common pitfall, is not to try something new and see what happens. Another common pitfall is doing everything ourselves because it's more efficient in the short term. At PEP, we're really investing in the future, so we have kids that are capable and courageous and connect with other people. And so if we get better and better at cleaning their room or deciding what they eat or organizing their social lives or packing their lunchbox, they never get any practice. And we want to start thinking about that as early as possible so they can be kids that know how to do a lot of things. When you feel capable, you have a tendency to be more courageous and even more cooperative. All right, so let's take a second before I go to the next thing and answer some of these questions. So how do I get my 9-year-old son to turn off the video game? Our agreement is he gets an hour a day, but he always resists and I have to end up yelling at him. This is a great question because screens have infiltrated every part of our lives. So what I've learned already about your beloved 9-year-old is that he is not reliable to get off the screen without your assistance. And so with a 9-year-old with a screen, which is somewhat addictive, it's not an innocuous thing, we would plan for him having a hard time getting off the screen. So with a 9-year-old, I might say, you know, we have this hour agreement and it's not being met. People are not getting off the screen after an hour. So what are ways that we can figure out what to do next? And let the 9-year-old come up with some solutions. I don't know what he's going to say. He might say set a timer. He might say come and remind me. So then we as the parent would decide what we're willing to do. You know, sweetie, it's really hard to get off, so I'd be willing to come in 50 minutes before, give you that time frame, and then I will be turning the video game off. Now, if it gets really, really dramatic, then you might be unwilling to give him video game time every single day. So you know what? If things explode, we're going to take a couple of days off and calm ourselves down. And you can always get another try with video games. Getting kids off screen, we should plan for their resistance. They will not be talked out of it. When my 7-year-old daughter gets mad, she lashes out and calls me names. Then I tell her she has to go to her room, and it escalates with her calling me more names and lots of yelling. How can I get her to stop? So when 7-year-olds get angry and they call us names, one thing is to think she doesn't have enough skills to get what she wants. So to look at underneath the yelling angry names, what kind of new responsibility or privilege is she looking for? And then how can I get that to her? So if she wants some kind of new privilege, how can I get that to her with adding a new responsibility? When we punish the kids, so sending them to their room is a punishment, when people get punished, instead of thinking about what they're doing and correcting it, they actually defend themselves. So when we try to force a kid into timeout or force a kid into a room, we're actually fanning the flames of their anger rather than meeting the needs of the situation with mutual respect. So once one name is hurled out, you might try tip number 1, which is get down to her level and look up at her and say, how can I help you? Now, it takes a lot of courage to ignore the first name calling, but sometimes getting down on their eye level, even a little bit below them and looking up at them, transforms that anger momentum, and then she can say whatever her request is. You can try another phrase too, which is, I don't call people in the family names and I won't be called names. So I'm going to take this magazine and go read for a while. I'm going to turn dinner off and I'm just going to not be a person who gets yelled at. So when you're ready to talk to me normal, I'll be in here. Now that takes some courage and feels like it takes a long time in the short run, but in the long run that trains kids that's we're teaching mutual respect. The next question is, I see rationally how these ideas can be ideal for parenting, but how can I actually start to be that kind of parent? My 6 and 8-year-old daughters fight all the time and I just can't stand it anymore. So that's a 2-parter right there. The first part of the question is, how can I start? And this is such a great question. People come to PEP classes and they think, I'm going to change everything. I'm just going to do all of these things at once, and then usually it's like a diet that's too hard. You throw it all away and you go back to your old habits because it's too hard and it doesn't work. So our suggestion is to take one tip at a time, keep on being yourself, keep on doing all the things you do, and fold that in. So 2 times tomorrow, can you guys get down to their eye level and either ask them when they're upset what's wrong, or give your instruction to them with 3 or 4 words right at their eye level, and see what happens. So it's a slow burn type of change that we're looking for. Could you allow a natural consequence to occur? And then see what happens. And again, without verbally reviewing the natural consequence, but just to see what kind of child you live with. Is it a child that cares whether they're cold or not? Is it a child that really wants their lunch every single day, or they figure it out on their own with their friends and hot lunch? We don't know who we live with until we experience them. Then the second part of the question is, my 6 and 8-year-old daughters fight all the time and I just can't stand it anymore. Sibling fighting is, this is how I describe it. So there's the path of parenting, and up here at the end of the path is being invited to their house when they're 30. And over here in the brambles, that's sibling fighting. Siblings fight because it releases stress, it gets our attention, it's very, very cooperative, and nothing gets us up out of our chair quicker than siblings fighting with each other. So the short answer is ignore it as much as you can. Try to find other ways for them to relieve their stress. And so if you can sort of notice when they're fighting, notice if you can take them out to play or feed them some protein before. And then you can try phrases like, if it's too loud, you could say things, you guys are cooperating too loudly in here. It needs to be quiet for me to do my work. Or you could try something like, it doesn't sound like fun. Does anybody need help? Those are ways that you can change up that sibling thing. The other thing I challenge parents to do is to change their language. So instead of they always are fighting, literally get a notepad and jot down any times they aren't fighting. And then at dinner, you can reflect and say, you know, you guys, you sat there and you were playing Legos. What were you building? Can you tell me about that fantasy world you started? And then we start building on the strength of their relationship instead of keeping on noticing when they're fighting with each other. Okay, the next question is, my 10-year-old girl, daily drama on what to wear. I love the fashion problems. Previously, we had a week-long cubby where she put an outfit on each day. Now, I love this part too, because this is the challenge of parenting, is we find a solution, and then in our minds, we're like, this is great, it's solved forever. And then it changes, and then this great problem solution isn't a solution anymore. So anyway, we originally did it together on Sunday, but without my help, she stopped. Now she opens up every drawer, pulls out several different items all over the place. Consequently, her room looks like a bomb went off, and we're always late getting out the door. Interesting. So I'm curious if the 10-year-old just really likes your company, and whether that investment of Sunday night together, maybe with a hot cup of tea and you just lay on her bed while she does stuff and you're watching her. They love when we hang out with them when they're that age. They love when we're relaxed and we're just maybe chit-chatting with them while they're doing their cubby. So that would be my first suggestion, is to ask the 10-year-old, hey, what happened to the cubby system? Do you want to reboot it? The other thing is, and this comes from my professional organizing that I do too, is that a lot of time our kids' rooms are messes because they have too much stuff. So it could be she has too many clothes, and that's a problem you can solve without talking to anybody. You can go in and declutter some of the clothes, and that might minimize some of the problem. If kids are having real fashion problems, you might say to her, can you get some backup clothes for the car if you drive her to school? And then that way I'll be waiting in the car and I know you have an outfit that you can wear that day to school and you can change real quick in the car before we get there. But I'll be waiting in the car. And that concept is you're taking the sail out of their wind. When there's nobody to watch the big, robust, powerful show, the show gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And you really want to think the needs of the situation are to get dressed and get out of the house on time, and how do you do that mutually respectful? Now I would like to talk to you about, if any of this resonates with you, we want to tell you about our upcoming classes and workshops. So we have a PEP 1, which is just geared for kids, your kids' ages 5 to 12. We have an 8-week class, a 3-week class, and a boot camp. Because what we've learned is parents have all different times that they're available, and it's all the exact same curriculum. You learn all the exact same things, and you get to ask all your questions, and you have it in 8 weeks, 3 weeks, or in a boot camp. We have an online 4-week master class where there's videos, there's things to read, and then once a week you have an experienced PEP leader and the whole group do a Zoom call where we answer questions. There's also an online forum so you can stay connected all during the week too, ask questions, share information. And what's beautiful about that is that participants help each other out. You guys all have lots of great parenting tools too that you can share with other people. So tonight or tomorrow, we hope you try one of these 3 things. We hope you get down to your kids' level. We hope you take a minute to ask a question and then listen to them. And we hope you experiment with some natural consequences. Enjoy your evening. Thanks for being here, and let us know if you have any more questions.